Let's call this meeting to order, September 4th, 2018 at 6:32. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Mahoney.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Here.
Trustee Doherty.
Here.
Trustee Early.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Trustee Ott.
Here.
Trustee Strzok.
Present.
Thank you.
And approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Yes.
Trustee Strzok.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is audience business. Did we have anyone sign up back there, Steve? Steve's got it then.
John Ricker. I'll make this short and quick.
Please state your name and address for the record.
John Ricker, 437 Zantee Way, Lock Farms, Lockwood, I think it's called. We're out in the farms. I have prepared a short page here. I don't know if you want to read this or just wanted me to talk. I'll try to limit this to like 5 minutes or so, unlike the last time I was here. My concern is about the, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the police department or the city, whoever was involved with putting up a speed sign on Highway 2 behind, next to my property, Larry Smith's property back there. Thank you.
Road 4.
That's made a lot of difference. And anyway, my concern now is the internet. Actually, does anyone want to read this?
Well, if you would, please, you can give it to them and they can make copies of it. We're not exactly going to have time.
Yeah. If I could have one. First of all, the Lockwood Comprehensive Plan sets a goal for high-speed internet. That's something, the infrastructure and everything, it encourages businesses, it makes it better for the individuals that live in this town. Number two, if you have Xfinity, like we have, it went down twice this last weekend. It went down 5 times during the month of August. And this is, compared to other internet services that I've been familiar with, this is really bad. I have a home in Minden, Nebraska that has fiber optics running down the alley just a few feet from the house. That's 1 gigabit per second, 1 billion bits per second speed. And it costs $49.99 a month. And that's a town that has like 3,000 residents. I think Loch Bowie is like 5,000 or so. And I see no reason why we in Loch Bowie can't have similar service. Another interesting point is that my girlfriend was paying $120 a month for landline service and a long-distance phone line to talk to her relatives in Pennsylvania and other places like that. I think it's like $120 a month. Well, we replaced it with this Magic Jack. This costs $39 a year for the same kind of service. She can talk unlimited to anybody in the country for free. No minutes are charged. If you look at what some of the people in Loch Bowie must be paying, they're paying for water, electricity, gas, telephones probably, cell phone or telephone of some sort, and probably some internet. And the internet, cheapest internet that Xfinity is advertising on the internet is like $70 a month, up to $150 a month, just for internet service. What I really want to do is bring to the attention to the city that there's the power company, United Power, United Electric, forget what it's called,
United Power.
put a huge bundle of fiber optics right along Road 4 in my backyard. And I think their intent is that they can supply, supposedly that's running from one of their substations to another. But I understand that there's like 96 fibers in that bundle. And I think they're looking forward to putting service, internet service, into everybody's home into a smart meter. A smart meter will turn off will eliminate brownouts. When you get a really heavy load in the summertime with air conditioning, they can turn your power on and off and charge you depending on what the load is. Charge you less during off periods and charge you more if you're putting an extra load on their line. And I think what I really would like to propose that somebody look into the United Electric and see if they have what their fiber optic plans are for the future. It's a utility. They have conduits running to every one of our homes, and it's not unfeasible that they could be running a fiber optic line through those same conduits. Well, let's see, number 4, the technology is changing every day. I can remember when dial-up was, you probably can too, when that was the state of the art. And well, the cable company and the cable company in particular, way back when AT&T was a monopoly, that was the most hated company in the country. Now the cable companies seem to be taking over that position. Everybody has trouble with cable of some sort. And like I mentioned, just yesterday, our internet service through Xfinity was out for most of the day. I think it came on about 6 o'clock last night. A lot of cities and counties in Colorado are opting out of Senate Bill 153, which is now in 2005. It's already kind of an obsolete issue. It was presented by the cable company, CenturyLink, the phone lines, the two people that have wires running into our homes. And I think what I'd really like to do is see that the city look into the kind of competition that we have in other places, particularly like there's nothing unique about Minden, Nebraska. They just happen to have fiber optics. Everybody can have it. They don't have to rely on cable. They don't have to rely on the phone lines. So I would ask as closing if there is a need for circulating a petition to get on the ballot this fall. Is it too late? How many signatures are required? And is there interest in this board as well as citizens around Loch Buoy for looking into particularly the fiber optics that are running across Highway 4?
I think honestly, I think that the ball would be in your court if that's something that you wanted to press forward with. The town would have no problem going out and getting signatures, getting a petition started, doing what you feel. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that it is too late to be placed on. Even
Yeah.
if you were to go out and collect signatures, you can't get on the November ballot. In fact, the deadline is today to certify that.
For this year, yeah.
I mean, there couldn't be a special election. That's pricey for the town, and we can end up timing it towards a special election instead of running. But so maybe the town wants to just look at the issue. Getting an opt-out under Senate Bill 152 is not hard to do, frankly. Most of the time the voters do approve it, but the town needs to have a plan in place to explain why you're asking for that opt-out. So what we really need to do first is decide if that's something that you want to pursue.
I was afraid that it was too late because I've been thinking about this since they put that, I was talking to them when they were drilling holes for that fiber optic system. That was probably been more than 4 years ago. So if I would be interested in looking at talking to the power company with some kind of a pseudo backing of the town, not acting as a consultant, maybe at no fee. Of course, I wouldn't charge for that. It's just to open up the doors to see what, if there's any possibility of that happening in the future. And there's 5G coming down the line. It's going to be maybe 4 years before that's rolled out. It's a higher speed cell phone system, actually. And there's a lot of talk about that being the wave of the future, but that's quite a ways off. And I just hope that the town doesn't get in a position where the certain monopolies wind up with all of the bandwidth, so that there's only one. Right now, there's only 2 or 3 feasible alternatives for service in Loch Buoy, and that's Xfinity for cable. They've had those wires in probably in my backyard probably since 1994. CenturyLink that also runs a wire to my house, and Rise, which is a line of sight system. Minden had a line of sight system that I was hooked up to in 1980, in the 1990s anyway. It's old technology, but it's reasonable and it's inexpensive.
Well, sir, at this point, you know, obviously you can't put it on the ballot, but as a citizen, you can definitely charge forward with it, and you got a year to figure out alternatives and bring it back to the board and have the board work on it at that point. But currently, you know, there's nothing we can do as far as putting it on the ballot. But as I said, you have all the rights as a citizen to go out and petition and talk to people and figure it out. So.
Okay. And what about me contacting the power company?
Well, we can't say you can do it on our behalf. But as a citizen, you can do it. You can contact anyone you want to and get those answers. I mean, and they're usually pretty amenable to discussions.
Yeah.
Of course, that's usually with me, but.
Yeah. If you've ever seen fiber optic speed, it's
yeah.
You know, streaming is, this is being streamed right now. If we can, I don't know if it's fast enough for most people at home to pick it up, but it's the way of the future. Streaming, where we replace cable or replace Dish and DirecTV. I've got a subscription to Amazon Prime that has a lot of free movies, a lot of free content. I can't use it because I can't get the speed. So I've taken a lot of your time, I think. Thank you for all. And
all right, thank you.
If you have any questions, I'd be glad to pursue this in the future.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next item is the consent agenda. And payment approval report in the amount of $571,524.37, as well as the August 21st, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Early?
Yes.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Trustee Ott?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lufkin?
Yes.
Lofgren? Sorry. Trustee Strzok?
Yes.
Trustee Doherty?
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. All right, next item is a continuation of the public hearing on the service plan for Loch Buoy Station.
Public hearing on this service plan was set for last week, or last meeting, and was noticed as section. We continued it to a date certain to this evening. I see Ms. Millen from the room, so I'll imagine she'll present to you the basis of this service.
Okay. All right, with that, time is now 6:46, and we'll open the public hearing, please.
Mayor and trustees, good evening. Diane Miller, Miller & Associates, Law office is 1641 California Street, Denver, Colorado. On behalf of the applicants tonight for the Lac Bowie Station Service Plan, and the applicants are Flywheel Holdings, LLC. John Spillane is the principal of that entity. Service plan was filed with the city on June 26th, and after comments from the town attorney, we did an updated submission on August 16th, although not necessarily required. Publication was made in the Brighton Standard Blade on July 25th about the hearing tonight. The district lies entirely within the town of Lac Bowie, and the build-out is includes a total of 202 single-family homes with an estimated build-out population of about 500 residents. The district is proposed to include improvements including street and traffic signals, water service, storm drainage, sanitary, sewer, parks, open space, recreation facilities. Although the district is constructing those facilities, it is not intended to operate those facilities. It will receive storm drainage services from the South Beebe Draw Metropolitan District, fire protection from Brighton Fire Rescue District, water, sewer, and emergency services from the town of Lac Bowie. The debt for this district is listed as $5,700,000. Total cost of improvements in this district, public improvements, is estimated at $8,615,000. So any public improvements that are constructed for this development that cannot be paid for by the district will remain the obligation of the developers of the property. Pursuant to the financing plan, the district intends to issue one series of general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount of $5,020,000 in or around the year 2024. The mill levy cap for this district is 55.277 mills, with 50 mills of that for the debt service, and the remainder for an O&M mill levy. I think that's it. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Trustee Ott?
Nothing.
Trustee Doherty?
Nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
No, everything made sense to me.
Trustee Morris?
I have nothing.
Trustee Strock?
Don't laugh. Do you have a copyright on this?
I wish I had a copyright on it.
Thank you.
Trustee Early?
The only question I had was on the dedication of improvements on page 7. I thought we had talked about parks and open spaces were going to be not the town's responsibility anymore. Did I misunderstand that?
We're handling that issue through land use approvals other than through this service.
For this one? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to check.
I'm aware that that's our policy moving forward, and we're taking care of that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a maybe, and anything that the town does not accept for operation remains the responsibility of the district.
Yeah, I knew we had a discussion.
And just, for the record, in your packet for tonight's meeting, there's a staff report that outlines all the statutory criteria that both are required for the public hearing, and then you will look at and determine whether or not to approve the service plan. And so the resolution that's also before you approve the service plan lists out all those statutory criteria, so you do make the finding of those criteria just by approving that resolution.
Okay. Anyone have anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak on this? Pro, con? No one? Okay, thank you. All right.
So I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-18, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lac Bowie, Colorado, approving the service plan for Lac Bowie Station Residential Metropolitan District and conditionally approving an intergovernmental agreement in the form of the attached exhibit 1 to that service plan, incorporating the findings included in the board packet.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Jordan.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Strzok.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. Thank you. All right. Tim.
Mayor and trustees,
Hold
although
on one
it's
second.
entirely
Hold on one
not on
second.
your agenda.
One second. And time is now 6:52, and we're coming out of the,
Though this is entirely not on your agenda, as you know, our firm also represents Sand Hills Metropolitan District, which has been involved in a litigation for many, many years now. And so I did want to advise you that as of this afternoon, we've entered into a settlement agreement with the oil companies, which will be approved, we believe, by the bankruptcy court next week. And it will resolve all the issues that are outstanding with Sand Hills Metropolitan District. Perhaps of greatest interest to you is that the money that was set aside for the Henry Reservoir repairs will remain with the town of Lochbuie in that settlement agreement.
well, thank you for the good news.
Yeah.
Well, meeting adjourned. I'm going home.
We're very pleased that we were finally able to work that settlement out.
Well,
So
thank you. That
it's been a
is,
lot of work.
that's great news. We're glad to hear that. Well, here I thought we were in tall cotton, and now it's even better. So, all right, thank you. All right, next item is Safe Building Code.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, trustees, and town staff. I'm Russ Weber, Operations Manager for Safe Build. It's that time of the year again. It's like most municipalities, we try to skip a code cycle because there's not some serious code changes that's worth going for, but this one seems to be good. And also, there's probably about 25 municipalities in northern Colorado that is going to adopt the 2018. So with that, it really helps our builders, like I know we have some national builders in town. It really helps them from going from one municipality to the other to try to stay consistent with the building code. So what I'm going to do tonight is kind of talk about the process, how the 18 code, how it compares to your current code that you're on, the 2012, some of the good things. To be honest with you, going through it, there's not a whole lot of changes with what your current amendments have. There are a lot of good things that I think are going to benefit the builders. So there are going to be some decisions that will need to be made by the town staff and the town board. What we try to do is give you our best recommendations, and those recommendations are based on what other municipalities are doing. That doesn't mean that you by any means have to go with that. We're just going to give you our best interpretation of the code and what best fits the town of Lochbuie. We are also going to have a meeting next month with the Northern Colorado HBA. We do that every code cycle. We want to get their input. A lot of these big builders are members of the HBA, so we want their direct input. We want to know what's affecting them cost-wise. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Is it cost prohibitive? There are some things that have added costs, obviously, that we're going to recommend, like the sprinkler provision, we're going to recommend not enforcing that again for residential homes, but keeping it in the code. We do that not so that it's not mandatory, so that it's an optional. We are starting to see a lot of builders that are putting an NFPA 13D system in for marketing purposes. So if they do that, we want to have some codes that we can regulate them too. So as I go through this, feel free to stop me at any time and ask a question. I'll try to be as brief as possible. We're going to come back to you with, once we determine kind of what direction the board wants to go, and town staff, and we'll put together some of our amendments so that you guys can make a determination on which direction you want to go. I say that meaning the energy code is one that we really want your input on, because State of Colorado does not have a state energy code, so, you know, if we're looking to adopt the 18 International Energy Conservation Code, we can make amendments to it. So we can amend it back to, currently I think you're on the 2009. So as we get into this, I'll tell you why there's a lot of things in there that, and trust me, that you guys can, if you want to go all out, you can, if you don't, but we're really looking at what some of the other municipalities are doing and try to stay consistent with them. So I think you guys have a copy of your current amendments. I think everyone had a copy of that, maybe not. I went through them all, and I just want to go through really quickly your current amendments, and there's only some very minimal. Table 301, which talks about your design criteria, they've now added the energy code provisions in there, so we'll fill that in for you. It's the table that talks about our wind speed, our snow depth, our frost depth, all that stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Emergency escape windows, we'll talk about how that has changed, and that's going to be another one that I think we'll need input on from both the town staff, town board, and probably the HBA. So with that, we'll kind of talk, there's not a whole lot. Chapter 34 of the International Building Code has now been removed from the 18 codes. It's a standalone book, the International Existing Building Code. So that was a book previously, but it was also the same verbiage from the existing building code was in chapter 34 of the IBC, but that is now gone. So we'll just want to make sure that we adopt the existing building code. So yeah, we'll everything else, all of your current amendments, there's really hasn't been any changes. All of those are in the body of the code still. So we'll keep all of those amendments that you currently have. I want to talk about some of the major changes, and what we did. This is the pamphlet that you guys have, I know now. These are by no means all of the changes from the 18. They're just some that I think that are important to talk about. That they're important because they could affect some of the costs for the builders. So keep in mind, these are the changes to the code. So we'll be working with Steve, obviously, on some of these things will probably be in conflict with your town ordinance, with your zoning codes. So we'll want to make sure that we'll work closely with Steve to make sure that there's no conflict. I see the fire district back here too. We'll also be working with the fire district to make sure. Are you guys on the 15 codes or the 12?
2006.
You're on the 6, okay. You're looking to adopt the 18? Yes. Okay. So we'll work with the fire district on any amendments that they may have, because there's some really cool stuff that came in for like townhomes. So we want to make sure that we're consistent with what the fire district's enforcing as well. So on this third screen here, this was one I had, and I apologize, I've been with Safe Built for 22 years. Eric B. is actually your building official, but he had a family emergency tonight, so he couldn't be here tonight. Normally he would be the one doing this presentation. But he added in here, he did this presentation for you, he added in here the existing building code. So when you look at that third slide, the International Energy Conservation Code. He put that in there because it's very restrictive. So every town is a little bit different on how in depth they want to go on enforcing the energy code. So that's really going to be a decision with town staff and town board on how you want to, what direction you guys want to go. You're going to see in the Energy Conservation Code now that it's mandatory for blower door and duct blaster testing. So they want to know how tight is that house. With that, there's going to have to be some whole house ventilation. That's a pretty tight house. We're probably going to recommend, but again, you guys have the final say, we take your direction, that you probably don't go that direction. What we've been enforcing now is that if any ductwork leaves the conditioned space, then it's required to have a duct blaster test, because we want to make sure that no warm air in that duct is blowing out and you're losing air into unconditioned space. That doesn't mean that your duct in the basement, your basement is still considered conditioned space. It means if that duct maybe travels through the garage, if it goes through the garage, it's going to be required to have a duct blaster test to make sure that the ducts are sealed tight. So those are things that we enforce today. So we're really going to try to be consistent with the energy code today, but we would love to get your direction on, do you want to increase the R values? Right now they are increasing in 2018, both in the attic and in the walls. So do you want to stay with what you're doing today, or do you want to slowly start to creep up a little bit?
Could you tell me if there are air exchangers in the crawl space?
Pardon me?
That's required. Could you tell me if air exchangers are required in the crawl space?
Not in a crawl space. What the code now states is that you either have to bring in crawl space ventilation from the outside, or you bring in conditioned air. Yeah. But you don't have to have, they don't really regulate the air changes, they just say you have to condition the space.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. In R101.2, the accessory structures, they now have a maximum height of an accessory structure. It's increased from 2 to 3 stories. So that's just saying that you could have a detached shop that's 3 stories. Again, this could conflict with your zoning code. So we want to make sure that that we amend these sections to make sure that there's no conflict.
Does that include storage sheds in the backyard?
Mm-hmm.
3 stories high?
3 stories. So they just, basically it's saying that it can't be any higher than the primary structure, which is allowed to be 3 stories. But
okay, so if your house was not 3 stories, then it can't be higher than the house?
That's correct.
Okay, but I still think 3 stories is, whoa.
It's really limited by the town, because you guys have a maximum height of your buildings, I think it's 35 feet.
35 feet, yeah.
Yeah. So you're still regulated by that, and that's from the peak. So I don't even think you're allowed 3 stories by the town code. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're saying you think we should reconcile that, though, on what we adopt versus what's currently allowed by zoning?
It's really up to you. I mean, whatever we adopt here, we want to make sure it meshes with your town code. So if you say that you want to allow 3 stories, you would probably have to amend your town code.
Okay, I guess my question was kind of on the reverse. Just because the code allows for 3, if the zoning doesn't, then I guess I'm not sure why we would need to adopt differently versus what zoning is. I mean, I'm guessing Lockwood probably doesn't have too many neighborhoods that allow a 50-story building, but the building code still allows for 50-story buildings. And we would still adopt the building code that allows for 50-story buildings.
It's just easier for us to enforce it if we amend it right now. We don't have to have the argument with a builder saying, well, the code, you adopted this code, it says you can, but it conflicts with the town code. So just for argument's sake, it's easier for us to amend this to stay consistent with the town code.
Is that typical, though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's something in here that violates the town code, we want to make sure that we keep the building code consistent with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on that one? Yeah, you're going to see more and more of that, where we're going to have to work with the town to make sure that, because tiny homes is another one. You're going to see in here that they've changed the minimum square footage of rooms, and they've done that because of tiny homes. Tiny homes is actually an appendix chapter in the 2018. So keep in mind, appendix chapters are not part of the code unless they're specifically adopted. So they're just for reference. Have you guys thought of the tiny home things yet out here? Just wondering. Yeah. There are some municipalities that's looking at it. And the reason it gets really complicated is that they allow skylights to be used as a means of egress. So when they're so small, yeah. So the appendix chapter addresses all of that. It says, hey, you got to have a skylight that meets this above the bed and stuff like that. So it's interesting. But again, that would be a nightmare for zoning, I think. R202, change of occupancy, it's just a definition. The definition for change of occupancy has been added because there's been some bad interpretations of when a change of occupancy is. So this just clarifies, you know, when it is an occupancy change. This one right here is what we talked about, is R301.2. You'll see that they've added Manual J in the design criteria. Manual J is the design per the energy code of your equipment. So your furnace, AC, all of that stuff. So we are, you know, when you adopt the energy code, even today under the 09, excuse me, we enforce Manual D and Manual J. So that is a part of your code today. That's done by either an energy rater or it's done by ResCheck. Yeah. So when you do ResCheck, you also have to put in there what's the BTU of your appliances and what, you know, what's the size of your air conditioner that you're going to put in there. So this is nothing new. All this is just giving the design criteria. We have it all. We'll just plug it in there to that form so that when somebody wants to design their Manual D or Manual J, they have it in there. Just simplifies it. Townhome separations, again, the current amendment that you guys have, because we removed the requirement for residential fire sprinklers, we amended this section. It used to say that townhomes shall have a 1 hour separation. That was in the body of the code. But it assumed the building was sprinkled.
Right.
So when we modified and removed the sprinkler, we changed our amendment to either 2 1 hour walls or 1 2 hour wall. So we took that into consideration. This now puts it back in the code. It makes it a lot more clear. And these are all gypsum files, so they're all listed assemblies that we currently see today. You can't really tell, but if you look at that very last drawing, I don't know if you can see it in where it talks about R302.2, that is the typical assembly that we see a lot of times. What it is it's just 2 walls with a 2 hour panel right in between it. They do that so that they can keep a consistent 2 hour separation and not have, you know, and be independently structurally from each side. So that's really a common one, and now it's just in the body of the code. R302.13. So now this talks about, currently you guys do have out here that in I-joist construction, you have to protect the underneath side of the I-joists. I believe that is a provision that you guys currently have now. I was talking to Barry about it today, your old building official. What this says now is that you also have to do it in a crawl space. So that's really, you guys, we have a lot of municipalities that amend this out. We say that's silly. Here's the deal with it, and the reason I'll just give you history behind this is that firefighters, you know, they say that the floor in combustible construction like I-joist, the floor collapses on their firefighters before they can get the fire out. I get it, I understand it, makes sense to me, but to be honest with you, up north we went to Poudre Fire Authority, we went to Platte Valley, we went to Windsor Severance, we went to all the fire districts and said, give us a case file where this happened. It hasn't happened up north. Not that I know of. Have you guys had it actually physically happen here, where the floor collapses in a fire?
Are you talking crawl space or basement?
Either one. Yeah.
In Lockwood?
Yeah. No. In Lockwood. And that's, we try to do these, not to disrespect the fire district, but is it a national problem or is it a local problem? Is it a problem? Does it make sense? Of course it makes sense. These are combustible construction. But you guys still have the ability to look at that and say, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have a crawl space and with a furnace in there. Good luck drywalling that thing. So you're going to have that drywall in the basement before you set all your joists and stuff, or you'll never get it down there. So these are all things that you just need to think about. You know, I get protecting the underside of a basement. I get that. It's easy to do. A lot of municipalities have said, well, that's silly, let's give them some other options. So they say, well, if you sprinkler the basement, like Loveland requires it, so the city of Greeley, if you sprinkle the basement, you don't have to protect the underneath side. Those are all options that you guys can do as well. Those can also be done by not necessarily an NFPA 13D system, but they could be done by a P2904 system. So There's some easier systems to do if you want to go that direction. So these are all discussions. I'm just throwing this out tonight, no decisions. I'm just kind of giving you what's out there. And then Steve and I will have a lot more to talk about in the direction that you guys want to go. Did you have a question? I see you shaking your head.
I have lots, but we can get back to that.
But that one down there, 302.13, or 302.13, it's a new code that says if you have a fuel burning appliance in a crawl space, you got to protect the underneath side of the joist. So that's new. It's not required as of today.
It's too bad our homes are built with glue and gussets.
Yeah. They're all manufactured products now. Yeah.
All because of engineering liability, of course.
Yep. There are still a few builders out there that use conventional framing. If that's the case, you don't have to do this. This is only for I-joist.
2x12 is
2x8s, 2x10s.
Becomes a charge.
Yep.
2x2.
They take longer to burn. Yeah. The minimum habitable room area, R304.1, again, that is specific to tiny homes. So they kind of just said you don't have to have the minimum for 120 square foot has been removed from the code. This next one is a little bit interesting to me, and I think it's one that's definitely due, for discussion. It's R310.1. What it's saying is that emergency escape and rescue openings. So right now, we have an amendment in the code that requires all windows in basements to meet egress, whether it's finished or unfinished. Meaning, if you have a window there, you got to have the 36-inch window well, 9 square feet of net clear opening. And the reason is because the homeowner comes in, if the code says you only need one. So what builders were doing is they were coming in and putting 3 windows, but only one of them met the window well egress requirement. Because the code says that, you only need one. So when the homeowner comes in to finish their basement, we've got to make them dig out their window well if they put a sleeping room there. That didn't make sense. Because now we're putting the burden on the homeowner to remove their landscaping, remove their sprinkler, dig it out, put a bigger window well in. So your current amendment says that all windows shall meet egress, meaning the window wells as well. What this provision says is that you don't have to have egress windows if you have a sprinkled basement. It's interesting. So somebody could sprinkle their basement and not have they could have a sleeping room or 2 down there without an egress window. There are some exceptions to that. It says you have to have 2 means of egress. So you're going to have another door that leads directly to the outside, maybe a walkout basement, and one going up the stairs. So there are some other things, but I don't like this one. I don't like it for a lot of reasons that I think it's hindering life safety. It seems like if something happens to that sprinkler system and nobody knows about it, you've got a potential for somebody to be trapped in a basement without an egress window, and that's not cool. So I think we look at this and make sure that we amend that to say we're going to remove that provision and make all window wells meet egress.
Certainly need egress in a sleeping room. Period.
Absolutely. But this provision says you don't if it's sprinkled. Yeah.
So
you can sprinkle the rest of it.
our current provision says that all windows in a basement must be egress and that's regardless if it's a finished or unfinished basement. Mm-hmm. So even if there's a window in a bathroom, it has to have means of egress.
We've had that come up in a lot of municipalities, and we do that on a base by case. We don't see that very often, to be honest with you, in new construction. We don't see a 2x3 window up high on the foundation. If we did, kind of tells us that's probably going to be a bathroom. So that's an exception. That we would allow that. We've written that in as an amendment in some other codes because what we've had is we've had the corner of a basement that has 2 window wells or 2 windows right at the corner. And they say, well, we only want one of them. That kind of makes sense.
So what, I guess I definitely understand having flexibility from an unfinished basement standpoint, but I guess I don't know if I really follow making all windows egress in a finished basement. That's one that's designed as a finished basement and gets built as a finished basement. Because I think allowing just a single egress window for basically every bedroom in the basement would be adequate. So if you have one bedroom, that bedroom has to have a second means of egress with the window. And so, and then that way you get away, if they have 2 windows in their bedroom, they don't have to make both of them. And if there's a tiny window in the bathroom, they don't have to make that one egress as well. So I think there should be a distinction based on if it's finished or unfinished. Because if it's finished and they know where all the rooms are gonna be, most homeowners aren't gonna just completely change that, because then you have to go like what's load bearing and what's not. And I think the majority of homeowners aren't gonna do that. And if they are, that's a pretty big renovation, and they need to put in a new egress window where they put in a new bedroom. So I think we should make a distinction between those two, if it's unfinished versus finished, to allow for it just to be a single egress windows out of bedrooms only. And then that way we don't have to have those exceptions on a case by case. It can just be in what we adopt per code.
We can take a look at it. It's just, we put that in there for simplicity, because 90% of the basements today are unfinished. So they're unfinished. So the homeowners is gonna be the one to say, well, great, the national builder picked where my bedroom's gonna be, and I'm not gonna do it.
I guess that's what I'm saying, is if they go and pull a building permit, and that building permit says we're not going to finish it, I absolutely agree that they should all be egress. What I'm saying is this: if I or somebody were to build a building permit, and part of that building permit is that I'm finishing the basement, so the process of me building this is me finishing the basement, then there's no need for that. So
I get it.
So you have it both ways. So you take that onus off the owner that goes in and tries to put in their basement and put in the walls where they want, and they have to figure out where their egress windows are. So you remove that, because you've made all of the windows egress. But if they're finishing it today, and we know they're finishing it today, then I don't see any reason that all of the windows would need to be. And that's why I think making that distinction between when they pull the permit, if they're planning on a finished basement versus not, that should be, I think that should be a distinction that we make and a separation that we make.
Yep, that's fine. We can look at that. I just want to caution you that even the national builders, they submit it as an unfinished, and before the house is done, the basement's finished. So,
Well, so then they're gonna have way too many,
well, they may have one that's not.
but that's what I'm saying, is if it's unfinished when they start, when they pull the permit, then they're all supposed to be. So you would catch that.
Okay, so you're saying that if they say it's finished, we can write it in. I would just caution you that there's gonna be some cases where somebody may need to dig one out or remove one, and it's gonna be, that's the town ordinance, that's the town code. You know, we had that in Windsor. We had that in Windsor years ago when we adopted the 2003 code, is we said, and I think you guys still have it today, that if the house was built prior to the 97 UBC, you don't have to have the egress window wells are still good. Because the 97 UBC allowed for 2-foot, 30-inch window wells. So we said, hey, if your house was built under the 97 code, you don't have to dig out that window well. I just want to be careful that we don't end up with a case where somebody gets upset that we're going to make them either dig out their window wells. It's just not worth them coming running to Steve saying, really, now I got to dig out my window well because I want to put a basement or a window in a certain spot, or I want to change the configuration of a finished basement. I mean, we can do it. It makes no difference. We take direction from you guys. I'm just trying to throw out all scenarios that could go wrong so that you guys have a clear way to make a decision.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a general question, maybe for Mr. Stamey. What do we have? I mean, I appreciate the discussion and the information, but trying not to let myself get down any rabbit holes or get too into the weeds on specific details. But what's our process for reviewing, amending, and analyzing or doing an analysis of codes and adoptions, amending and then ultimately adoption of a new code? Well, SafeBuilt is our building officials. They serve as that
Capacity.
technical resource for us and advising the board on code adoption, code amendments.
So what we can do is write that in, and then you guys can look at it and see if that wording meets.
I'm
Just a
aware, if I could continue, I'm aware of a whole bunch of benefits to adopt the 2018 cycle, and I'm trying to come up with negatives or some cons for that, and other than an increased cost to builders and then the homeowners. I guess for me, in considering this, I would like to have more of an overview of a cost-benefit analysis of it. I mean, nothing too fancy, but, you know, the pros and the cons of going to an 18 code or a 15 or leaving it at the 12 or whatever.
Okay, because that's where I'm trying to go with this, is that there's not, your amendments that you have now, there's no change. There's really very minimal, other than to the energy code and to some of these things that I'm pointing out. The code is pretty much the same as it was from the 12 to the 15. But there are some, these are the ones that I flagged here, I think need to be talked about. There's a lot of little changes. When we get into the International Building Code, there's a lot of cool stuff that are going to save the builders actually money.
So basically what you're telling us is your recommendation is to adopt 18, but here's some things to look at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the things that I think are important that we look at, that you guys make a decision on, because they are different and they are going to cost people. So that's kind of what I had Eric do, is put the major changes in here that could affect the cost of a home. That's
So,
really,
and
really
thank
what
you
I'm
for
looking
that.
at.
So are you looking for specific guidance on what to amend out or what to modify tonight, or is this just an
Kind of. I
information
mean, I like
session?
what you said. I mean, I think I'm going to get guidance to put together some wordage to kind of get, this is not tonight.
No.
I'm just getting your feedback, and then we're going to put together some amendments. You guys are going to look at them and say, I don't like that one, I want this one, I want this one. We're going to amend it a few times. We're just going to make recommendations based on kind of what I'm hearing, on the direction that you guys want to go. Because we want something that fits your citizens.
Well, if you're trying to get direction on that, I disagree with him, so.
Well,
And
my
I agree with
position
him.
is, I'm in favor of moving towards the 18 cycle, but I'm cautious in doing that just because it's thousands and thousands of pages, and I mean, it's insane level of detail on stuff. And I appreciate the highlights or the lowlights of some of the things to really cast a close eye on and stuff. But I guess my concern is, what would the timeline be moving forward to adoption?
Most likely the first quarter of January of next year. Yeah. By the time we have meetings with the HBA and we have even some local builders, we want to get their input as well. They go to code hearings. They know what they want. So we want this to be, we're not going to take everything they say, because obviously they're going to want to go a different direction, but we're going to address it with life safety. So sure, by the time that we have HBA meetings and we have meetings with you guys again, maybe even in a work session, we can talk about some of these things. The earliest I see is first quarter of 2019. And that's consistent with what everyone else is doing. Fort Collins, currently right now, Larimer County, Fort Collins, City of Loveland, they're all looking at the first quarter of 2018. Yeah.
Can you list those again?
Pardon me?
Can you list those again?
Larimer County, City of Fort Collins, Loveland. I know those three for sure. I think City of Longmont is, but they just lost their building official, so I'm not sure where they're at. Brighton. Those are just some that I can list a bunch of them, because I know that Windsor, Timnath, Severance, Wellington, those are all our clients. They're going to the 18. So Keensburg, Hudson, they're all going to the 18 as well. They're all proposing. So all of our clients, we have 7 of them, from Firestone, Meade, Platteville, Dacono, they're all going to the 18. Yeah. Currently, right now, Platteville and Meade are the only 2 that are on the 06 code. So they really want to.
Holy crap, that's a
Yeah, they
huge
really
jump.
want to adopt something.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
So yeah, like I said, there's that I know of, there's 25 municipalities here in North and along 76 that are going to adopt the
So
18.
they're going from clay huts to houses.
Exactly. We have one still on the 03.
I had a decent amount of other things, but I guess I'd like to kind of do that at the end and then ask questions specific to the slides, because I want to have you go through the rest of the slides. So I have lots of things, but I don't want to sidetrack like this slide specifically. But
Yeah, I can go through them
if
just real quick.
because I definitely want to have you go through the rest of them. I'm definitely interested in that, but I also do have a lot of opinions of my own.
Okay.
Let's just go with that.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to submit maybe to the board, just because this level of detail that we're interested in, which is perfectly fine. Might be an opportunity just for like a little subcommittee or something to meet with Safe Build, not to do this in a public meeting where you could, I mean,
Agreed.
I'll tell you, I work with Safe Build in Centennial and all over the place. And for the most part, elected officials are not engineers and they defer to their
That's what I was
expertise.
just gonna say, I mean, we have Mr. Strack and
Yeah,
Mr. Doherty that seem appropriate to kind of sit down and
yeah.
hammer
That's
things
fine. I mean,
out.
I'm open to input, but, yeah. We,
Might be
No,
better
I
use
don't want
everybody's
to,
time.
well, I guess here's where I'm at is, I definitely understand saving everybody time, but I also want to voice my thoughts on this. So if that's a better way for the board to do it, then I'm fine with that, but I definitely am, I'm definitely interested in this personally, so.
I mean,
Well, and I
that's
think
a
that-
decision of the board,
And
but
I don't want to
seen
just
that work really
sidetrack your
well.
guys' meeting.
Well, this, I believe this is nothing more than an informational session. He's bringing it forward, showing us highlights, and then from there, we'll start getting into the
Just to get your
detail
mind
and the
thinking, and
minutia.
then what we could, like I said, we can do this in a work session, we can do this
Yeah.
however you want, that we can get into the nuts and bolts of what you guys really want. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a great place right now to build that question list, build the things you want to look at and you want to discuss.
And I have a business card, so I'll give it to each and every one of you, so you can shoot me some emails, and, yeah, I'll forward them to Eric B., our building official.
So,
But I'll just go through this really quick, so that way we won't eat up a whole lot of time. Smoke alarms now, they do need to be interconnected, as well as carbon monoxide detectors. They now talk about the lead content in the water, so this is kind of a moot point because most of the plumbers today use lead-free solder and that kind of stuff, but it is in there.
So for the interconnected, is it in the language that it has to be physically connected?
There is. The 12 does not say that. It says that where it's technically infeasible, you can use a battery backup.
Well, I guess where I was actually going with that is with where technology is going, why do they need to be physically connected? I mean, I could
That's why
connect
this
it.
is in here.
Well, no, that's what, so
Yeah.
is this requiring them to actually have a wire that ties one to the next? Or, I
No.
mean, because they can definitely be tied together, but not tied to connect
No.
together physically, so this
That's
allows for
That's
that?
another part of the code, is that they can be wireless, so they can be wirelessly interconnected.
But still, okay.
Yep,
as long as they're communicating.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want Comcast.
Change of use again, food processing and commercial kitchens, classification of storage spaces. These are all things that, it's still, again, it's a change to the code, but it's kind of a moot point because there's a lot of things in there that the code still says that you can use a non-separated use provision and stuff like that. So these are just clarifying a lot of things. Children's play structures. They've never been specifically regulated in like McDonald's and some of these other places, but they want to make sure that they're safe, that they meet the flame spread and smoke development for the material that they're using.
That's
Locking-
just
go ahead.
commercial?
Pardon me?
That's just commercial?
So we switched to IBC now.
Could be a daycare facility, could be a home daycare, could be, this is mostly commercial right here though, yes, but it could be. Interlocking, this again is when there's like an active shooter. They've taken that into consideration and they say, hey, let's get the rooms are able to be locked from the inside, so that, but they have to be easily, as you can see these pictures, there has to be a lever or something very easily for the kids to get out. Public toilet facilities, this is actually a good one for like tenant finishes, because the current code under the 12 says that if you have a tenant finish with an occupant load of 15 of patrons and workers, you need separate sex facilities. So that's kind of a burden to some tenant finish guys wanting to come in. They have to put a men's and women's restroom. The code has now changed that to 25 people. So it's increased it a little bit and said, hey, you can now go up to 25 and still have a single unisex. So there are some things in here that do save money. Fire watch during construction, it's just saying that, and this will be in the fire code as well, is that during combustible construction, there may be a need to have a fire watch there during construction. We saw that in an accident down in Denver not too long ago. Yeah. These are all things that are historically added to the code because of problems nationwide. So that's why I say we look at them and are they a life safety concern locally. Sometimes not, sometimes they are, but sometimes it's just a good thing to do. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's going to be more to come, but we'll put together some ideas that I've heard tonight, and maybe we'll get together on a work session of some sort to talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely think that'd be something, I think much of the board would be interested in doing, is having a work session and being able to actually discuss this. I know certain individuals.
We're open to it.
I'll definitely take, I don't know, a couple shots of rum before I can.
Would anybody like to be involved in the HBA meeting that we have, where we have, okay. It's probably going to be held in the Fort Collins area, but we really want to get some of the bigger builders in there to talk about what this is doing to them. Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Okay.
So,
All right. Go ahead.
I guess kind of my one major thing, because I definitely don't want to just go through all my items. I guess my one major thing is the adoption of 2018 versus 2015. My concern from the beginning, and I've voiced this a couple of times, is I don't think the town should be, sounds bad, but I don't think we should be a leader in pushing a new building code. I actually really like the idea for a town this size adopting like 2015, and I think we should be on 15, and we should be basically 3 years out based on the rollout of the new building codes. And that way, any additional issues, and I definitely trust what you guys have gone through, but there's going to be other things that you guys didn't catch in the new building code that's going to cause problems, that I'd really prefer that, you know, the town of the city of Fort Collins, they catch those and they deal with those issues, than the town of Lochbuie put their resources in it. I mean, right now, I'm not aware of, I haven't done any project on 2018 IBC, but we do tons of projects on 12, we do tons of projects on 9, we do tons of projects on 15. So I definitely understand your point about consistency, but builders don't have consistency all the time and deal with it just fine. Like I said, I've recently, in the last 2 months, have worked on probably 3 different versions of the IBC, and it's not a huge issue. It's just something that the people doing the work need to be aware of. They need to know what code they're using, and that's the first thing that anybody who's doing a construction project needs. Maybe not the first thing, but for somebody doing the design of it, that's the first thing that they need to understand, is what the adopted code is. And so I think 15, in my perspective, would be better for the town, although there's definitely some things that you pointed out on 18 that I like the sounds of better than what 15 currently has. But it still concerns me to have the town on a code that was just rolled out not too recently ago. And there's very few towns that have it currently, and almost none of them that have had it long enough to flush out all of the issues with the code that the new code's going to give them. And so that's my big hesitation with going from where we're at with 12 to 18, especially when you said that there's very few changes from 12 to 15 to 18, that, you know, if I think it would be really good for the town to just consistently be 3 years back. I also don't think that the town should wait another 10 years and then look at what code. I think it should be on kind of a consistent basis, that about every 3 years, when the next code cycle comes out, that we look at adopting the next version, but not the newest version, to always kind of stay one behind generally, and then making any other provisions based on, you know, all these lessons learned that Fort Collins had to deal with over the last 3 years because they adopted a code and it was a pain for them to do, or maybe they had to go and ratify it and change that, but, you know, it doesn't put that onerous of figuring all that stuff out on the town. And that's my biggest hesitation with 18, regardless of, there's definitely some things that, from what you said, that I like about 18 over 15. I just don't think it's good for the town, in my personal opinion, to be on the leading edge of the code that hasn't been fleshed out yet. Okay. That's my biggest concern.
Just so that you know, I've been in a lot of meetings with Becky Baker, with Jefferson County, Greg Wheeler, City of Thornton. They're all adopting the 18 as well. Dan Weed. So all of these guys that are on the Colorado chapter of the ICC, you know, they actually we've had a lot of discussions on the 18 code, that the 18 code is a better code than the 15 in a way that saves builders money. The codes are very similar, but there's a lot of things in the 18 that actually benefit the builder. So that's why we were looking at it.
I get that for sure. I guess when you list it off, you're listing off counties that have a lot more capacity than the town of Lockbowie does to flush these things out. Fort Collins, which has,
Keep in mind.
I don't know, Fort Collins has probably
their
got
amendments
9
look like
times
this.
the building that we have.
Yeah.
What's that?
Their amendments look like this. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, you list off, and a lot of the ones that you list off are municipalities and counties that have the staffing and the manpower to deal with issues like that as they come up and flush those out and have the ability to get changes through the board quicker.
Have you looked at the 18 codes?
No, actually I have not fully.
Just wondering if there's something specific that you're wondering that
No.
we're gonna have to flush out, because we've
Well,
gone through
that's
it
what I'm
pretty
saying is I
in-depth.
don't think people know what there is to flush out until they've worked on it for a couple of years. I mean, almost every code that gets rolled out, there are issues that come up with that code that municipalities have to
Sure.
deal with.
Sure.
And I think that's better suited for Denver's and Fort Collins and the bigger municipalities that have the staff power to actually deal with those.
I can honestly say that the 18 IBC, and I taught the International Building Code for 10 years at Front Range Community College, and I know that code very well. It's a good code. There's nothing really in there that you're gonna see commercial-wise that's gonna be play an impact on anything out here. It's actually gonna help them. Like I said, there's things that are gonna benefit the commercial contractors, so. But we take direction from you guys. You wanna go with the 15? We'll go that direction.
No. Anything else? Mr. Doherty?
No.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
So what's our next step, I guess?
Okay? I think I'm
and
next
that's-
up with the wind speed.
Well, actually,
Okay.
I mean, because you have when we have something like that, Grant's, Mr. Doherty's opinion is to not go to the 18. If we have a majority of the board if the majority of the board was in favor of going with the 15 instead of the 18,
I guess if, based on what Maureen had said, I would definitely like to have more input than what we just had tonight on that. So personally, I'm not saying that that's my decision, that we should go to 15. I think this is something that I'd like to discuss further. And so calling for everybody to decide if we were, so.
I'm going down a direction right now to find out if we even want to pursue going and looking at the 15, or if we want to continue on with the 18. So my goal is to find out if the majority of the board would like to, as you said, research, get more information, and find out if 15 is more viable than 18. I think we should just go ahead, from my opinion, move forward, have a work session, and work at that point, at that level, because I don't think we need to be making any decisions right this minute. So I just want to know if the board is on board with moving forward, doing a work session, making decisions then, or not really making decisions, but having the discussion open and candidly and getting all the opinions out there. So, anyway, yes, Mr.
Would it be
Strzok.
possible that you could provide us with some 218s and some 15 code books so that we could look at them?
Do you have any 15s now? Do you have just the 12?
So-
I can provide you with a link that you can get them online. I can forward that to you. There's a free link that you can look at all the codes, all the 18 codes, and compare them. There's a tab that says 9, 12, 15, 18.
Well,
Sure. I also have a 2-page document from each, from the IRC and the IBC, that lists all the major changes.
That would be something that would be good to see.
Yep.
The changes, that would be definitely
Okay.
beneficial.
Some of them you may not quite understand, and they're so minute, but that's why I didn't supply them to you. But I'll definitely can do that. I'll give them to Steve.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely get that to us. And
Sure.
then from that point, we'll,
Can I make this easy and just do, can I do a motion to table this to a work session in January? And in the meantime, allow trustee Strzok and trustee Doherty to act as our subcommittee in communications with Mr. Stamey and with Safe Built
I
to
like
figure
it.
out where we want to head and as we head towards that work session?
So if that's a motion, I'll second it.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
So that's January. Is that where you want the work session in January?
Well, that's just what you just said.
That's what I
isn't
just
it?
said. Is that too far out?
It's up to you.
Well, yeah, because we adopt in January around that.
You wouldn't be
correct?
able to adopt it in January. If you did a work session in January, we're not going to adopt it till.
That's what I mean. Right
Till
now, we'd be adopting it in January, come January.
Well,
correct?
first quarter, so you'd be adopting it January, February, March, sometime
Yeah.
in that first quarter.
How
If
about a
we,
motion to amend it to work session as required? How's that?
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out when that is. We're quickly stacking work sessions on top of budget work sessions then.
I mean, if you want to go January, there's no harm in adopting it in June of 2019. I mean, that's your direction. It's just by the time we get through all of those work sessions and come to an agreement and have all the readings, it's probably going to be June, May or June.
I'm fine with that personally. It also takes into account the fact that we have a new board and 3 meetings.
Yeah.
I know you guys are busy, I know.
So, no, I'm okay with it. Anyone else have any issues? No? Okay, well, we already passed it, so.
Perfect.
All right, let's move on to wind speed.
So, Steve and I have had a few conversations about the wind speed. It is confusing. We need to change it on your website. We are enforcing, what you guys have on your website shows 90 mile an hour. What that is the nominal design speed. What we enforce is 115 mile an hour ultimate design wind speed. So when you interpolate that, it comes down to a 90 mile an hour constant wind speed. So we are enforcing the right thing, but I think your website needs to probably change to 115 mile an hour ultimate design wind speed.
So on that, the ordinance 608 that Maureen you sent, in that ordinance it specifically has it as 90, so do we actually need an ordinance to change that? Because it's in the ordinance that we've adopted 90. So, and I 100% understand that 90 and 115 are the same but from different perspectives. But
I think it's
we
confusing.
adopted 90 without saying that it was nominal. And so either we need in my opinion, we need to change 608 to say that it's nominal, or we need to change it and say that it's 115 ultimate. Because right now, I don't think we're clear. More than just a change, or do we not need to change that adoption? Because the way that I looked at it, we adopted something that's incorrect.
It says 90 mile per hour. It used to say 90 mile per hour 3-second
Right.
gusts, but that went away in the 12 because now we enforce ASCE 7.
Right.
So ASCE 7 now changed to the ultimate design.
Right.
And what we're going to do, just so that you know, if we go to the 15 or the 18, is we really want to incorporate the most current wind speed study that was done by CSU really, but SEAC was involved in doing all the wind studies along the Front Range because we're in a special wind region. They determined that I-25 was that number, is that I-25 east is 115 mile per hour ultimate design, 90 mile an hour constant. But I think that table is confusing. It either needs to say constant or it needs to change to 115. Even though that's what we're enforcing today, it's confusing to a design professional when he logs in. Yep.
So do we need to change 608?
Well, we're about to do a big building code adoption change anyway. I don't know if you've had any pushback or anything from any architects or builders with that confusion, or if it's just something that you've picked up on that the builders haven't had an issue with.
I've not heard any problems.
So
When they call us, we tell them the right one, but.
Well, so-
I think you could punt on this, frankly, I mean, just from a risk perspective, I think you could punt on this until we adopt the new building code, and then let's make sure we're very, very clear about what our wind speed standards are, but.
So if we did have somebody come over tomorrow though and said, no, your code says 90, that's what I'm designing to, the town has no leverage.
We would catch it at our plan review.
Well, I get that, but we have no leverage on it because even though you're enforcing 115, that's not what we've adopted. That's what I'm saying, is you might be marking that up and changing it, but if you have one version that comes up and says, no, the town adopted 90, and are based on 2012 IBC, they did basically what they adopted would be 90 ultimate. That's what I'm going to use. That's what I priced my building to do. I don't think the town has any leverage to change that, to have them change that.
And you're talking commercial.
Well, so the adoption's for IRC.
Right.
But I couldn't find anywhere where we listed it for IBC. So if I were to look, I'd probably look at the same thing. So I think it'd be either residential or commercial. Like I
It's in
said, this is
16,
the
so you
tables.
won't find it any different. In 16 of the IBC, you're going to see this right here. So you're going to see that we're in a special wind region.
Well, I'm just saying in what we adopted in the ordinance 608.
Right. So the IRC does say 90 mile an hour, but it doesn't say that it's a constant wind speed.
Right. So that's my concern. I see what you're saying, but if we have that one, what
Well, but
What
it
levers?
does say 90 mile an hour, and I think what the building official is telling us is he interprets that as constant wind speed. So when he interprets it, he has the right to make regulatory interpretations. And if he's wrong and if we try to enforce it, somebody could appeal it.
Okay.
But I think we could, personally, I like to dot the I across the T and not put us in a position, but in this situation, just going through a ordinance change on the IBC, because when you change a secondary code like that, you have to have special notice, special public hearings. It's not the same as just adopting ordinance at your next board meeting like other ordinances are.
That's fair.
If you all want to do that, you are not wrong. I'm just saying I don't think that where we are with the risk on this, that it's necessary when somebody presents a design to them that doesn't meet a 90 mile per hour or a 115 gust speed, I'm probably saying that all wrong, and you come back and say, you know, that 90 mile an hour is constant. It sounds like that's working out, I guess.
No, that's fair. Okay.
And just to clear that up too, the IRC, there's only two components that really come into play on a 90 mile an hour, and that's braced wall panels and trusses. Those are the two components really. And everybody in this area knows that we enforce 150 mile an hour ultimate design wind speed. They won't build trusses any less. They know that from just every municipality that knows this wind speed.
Absolutely. No, I see that.
But I see
That
your
makes
point.
sense.
I went on your website. and
So
saw it.
especially if we're going to change it soon, I can see that. I
What
guess.
we should do at least is just go in, because we have interpreted 90 miles per hour being the constant wind speed. We should get on the website and clear that up immediately. That
I
we can
think
do
so.
without going through
Okay.
all the hoops that you have to go through to change your building code.
Okay.
Yep. That's the easiest, just change that to constant and it's done, because that's how we interpreted it. Yep.
But for the most part, you know, years ago, we used to use asphalt impregnated board on the side of houses. It's been quite a few years that the industry has completely changed to using panels on the entire outside of the house, which helps the shear. You can nail the windows if they're perimeter nailed, that helps your shear. The nailing is what the real shear is. You don't inspect that. You don't get on top of the roof very often and inspect the nailing of the roof.
Correct.
So the 90 miles are changing the wind speeds, mainly is in, I would guess, in the truss systems that are going to require more diagonal bracing, interior walls that demise long exterior walls should have adequate sway bracing and stuff. So ultimately, even though we change, I completely agree with Trustee Doherty about the thing, but ultimately it's down to how the trades are nailing off the shear panels. And there's really no control over that other than integrity and who you pay.
We spot check it too. We do, even though we don't do an inspection, it's just like house wrap. It's a mandatory code requirement. So if we go down the street to do a rough and we see somebody putting siding on without it, we're going to stop them. But you're right. I mean, you're referring to the old Celotex.
That's basically, but we don't use it anymore.
Nobody uses it anymore. Yeah.
So even though you guys don't inspect it, it's still an IBC requirement that there's, on specific buildings, that there's a special inspector that comes out. That's not the building official that has to inspect those things, and nailing is one of those things. So even though that's not something that's on your checklist, that's often one of the things that is required by code to get inspected. Now, it may not always happen, but that's in the IBC that a lot of those nailing patterns are inspected by a third-party inspector.
Yeah, sometimes. It's not, if you look in chapter 1, it's not a required inspection. Framing is one, but there's a lot of things. I mean, the last time I was in court, and I don't want to go on too long, but the last time I was in court on a case, you know, that IRC book, if you're familiar with it, it's 2 inches thick. And there's a lot of things in that book that are mandatory, they're requirements, but we don't look at them. Because if we had to look at all those things, you're never gonna build a house. Yeah, you're never gonna get it done. Because we need to look at the shingles, at the tar and paper, I mean, there's a whole gamut of stuff, so you're right. I mean, there is a nail pattern requirement for shear, 6 inches on center, 4 inches on, 3 inches on the seams. Yeah, absolutely, that is a code requirement, but.
And a lot of them, the nails that are available for the guns are all too small.
Yeah, and they blow them through sometimes they blow them through the OSB, so, yeah. But you're right, some of the national builders have a third party that go in and look at those.
Always had an engineer sign off the houses.
I'm not even so sure they're engineers, I think they're just third party guys that
All right.
say, hey, yeah, we're gonna look at it, yeah. Good
Okay, anything else on
No, thank you.
wind
You
speed?
bet.
Let's move forward.
Okay,
Anyone have anything else for him? No?
thank you for
Anything
your
else?
time.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
really sad, I'm gonna miss those subcommittee meetings.
That sounds so exhilarating. All right, Weld County Road 2 and I-76 roundabout, JVA agreement.
Good evening. We get 2 items on here. The first one is in regards to the roundabout project. Our initial discussions with CDOT indicated there would be a simplified environmental clearance for the review. I don't know if anybody knows him, but Jim Houston for CDOT came out, walked the site, saw prairie dogs, and said, you guys need to do a deeper review. So the first letter I have here is to bring on SWCA to do an assessment of the existing prairie dog colony, look for any burrowing owls, and they will also identify the locations against what we have on our plans and either say that there's no impact or an impact. And if there's an impact, there's a couple options available. Yeah.
C4?
Can't we just
Yeah, yeah. Just had to make sure the tunnels are completely collapsed. Because it's not just the prairie dogs, it's the burrowing owls that come in after the prairie dogs.
Yeah.
So we'll get a map put together and make sure we're not having an impact. And if we do, there's some options to either euthanize them or ship them off to, I think, a black-footed ferret colony or a vulture colony or something.
Vulture.
Ship them north to Wyoming.
So yeah, that one did come up kind of late in the game when they were doing our initial review with CDOT. And they have completed probably about 50% of the environmental clearances at this point, but the remainder has to be done outside of CDOT, which is what I've got here. And I think just to make a distinction, I know, a lot of our folks, we call environmental in our firm, but they're mostly water and wastewater environmental. These are Bugs and Bunny environmental consultants.
Bugs and bunnies?
Yeah, and wetlands.
Bugs, bunnies?
Yeah. So this additional amount for the contract, they will put together the map, they'll put together a report, recommendations, and all of that will satisfy CDOT's review. And at that point, we should have approval and release of grant funding for their portion.
All right, questions, comments? Trustee Early?
I'll bite my tongue.
Trustee Strock?
So is the Galaxy Land Company responsible for their little piece of property?
Yes. So all of our work will occur within CDOT right-of-way, so that's where our consultant will be looking at predominantly, so.
All right, Trustee Morris?
I have nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Just to clarify, so it's only the extra 6,800 we're approving tonight?
On this first one, yes.
Yeah.
And that was for an environmental consultant.
Prairie dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Trustee Doherty?
Nothing.
Trustee Ott?
No, nothing.
I have nothing either.
I'll make a motion to approve the environmental subletter agreement for additional civil engineering services related to the environmental compliance in an amount not to exceed $6,800.
Second.
Take your choice on second and roll call, please.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Strong.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. All right, and the next item is the widening easement preparation letter.
Sure. So this one is related to the widening portion of the project. We had originally anticipated that the plat for Lockwood Center would be approved and finalized at this time, but I think that it's still kind of working its way through the system. And in order for our contractor to do work on the Lockwood Center property, we needed to get a temporary construction easement put together. And this is basically the cost for Flatirons or survey subconsultant to put that easement and description together to go with the actual easement that Marie prepared.
Okay. Questions, comments? Trustee Morris?
Nothing, thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Nope, thank you.
Trustee Doherty?
Nothing, thanks.
Trustee Ott?
Nothing.
Trustee Early?
Nothing.
Trustee Strock?
Nothing.
And I have nothing.
I'll make a motion. Trying to beat me. I'll make a motion to approve the easement preparation letter agreement for additional civil engineering services related to the easement for the widening of County Road 2 in an amount not to exceed $750.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Strong.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Aye.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. That was pretty painless. We should have done you first.
That's fine. I'm an engineer. I like learning about code, so even though I'm outside the building.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Staff comments. Samantha Byrne.
First and foremost, next Monday is the High Plains Library District focus group. I'd encourage you all to come. I'd encourage you all to let your friends and neighbors know. I think it's really important that we have a Lockley representation there. We have no voice in the library district. We don't have any board seats, so if we can get as many community members to come out and give their input, I think it's really, really important.
When and where?
It's next Monday at
September
the
10th.
Hudson Library
What time?
at 6 p.m.
6.
And I do know that they will be providing light refreshments. So if you're coming from there, you should be able to grab a snack. But I'll be there, and it's been in the newsletter twice. I'll put it back out on the Facebook page again this week. But just if you all can make it and just get your friends and neighbors to come out to you, I think it's really important. In that same vein, I do want to, and I know we're just piling work sessions on work sessions, and we're coming into budget, but I do think we need to do a work session in regards to the library and just talk through some different things. So I was looking at the calendar today, it doesn't look great. I don't know what everyone's availability looks like. I thought about maybe the 25th of this month, if we could get together. If not, we can push it till October.
25th for
I think, well, maybe we should push it till October, because I think I would like Maureen to come, and she is not available on the 25th. So, October 9th, I have a community workshop scheduled that evening at 6. We could do something maybe on a Thursday. Maybe the 11th. What works for you? I could do the 18th.
what date?
The 18th. October 18th.
Anyone have any issue with the 18th?
Here?
No, we thought you were going to host it.
That's fine. At least I know
Barbecue
where
and
it is.
kegger at Ott's.
Is that just to discuss where you are with your conversations with, okay.
Okay.
Did you see what time?
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
Could we do 6 o'clock? Is that too early for everybody?
6:30.
6:30.
AM?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do AM.
Okay, so it's October 18th at 6:30.
Okay, I'll send out a meeting request.
Oh, sweet, thanks.
And then just one quick little thing, spending on the water treatment plant. I was wrong. We had to do one more little thing. So I just updated your contingency tracker. We just did some additional programming to increase the ease of the system for operations. That's all.
Okay. All right. Steve?
So just a couple of updates. We did, on Steve Jefferson, Chris Sanchez, we interviewed 2 firms for the Phase 1 McHenry rebuild and expansion project.
We got money for that now.
I know.
Yes.
Do we technically? Must be a judgment still.
So, but the firm that I think we would like to recommend to the board, primarily based on our experience in doing similar projects, they're familiar with this area, and some work they've already done in this area. And so we'd like to bring that for an agreement in the next meeting to get that work started. Several resources.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I think it'd be a good
Long time coming.
project, yes.
And now soon to have the funding to make things happen.
Is our next step is great.
You got a tenth of that fee.
Okay.
So I did meet with Chief Gableson. He did indicate, I did have a summary on my last page, that they intend to have a ballot issue on a mill levy increase begin this year. The request from 6 mills to 9.2 mills. And he said he would rather the board give them feedback on what kind of fire impact fee level the board would be amenable to, what range. He said they would be open to something less than 1680 or whatever their amount was. But I think he said Hudson was a little concerned with he studied what that amount was, and the chief would prefer if both communities were in the same range. And I think also we have to consider in our community as soon as building the Wright Fire District, which
Silver Peaks.
Silver Peaks, and as well as Lockwood Center Station will be in that district of what our other builders would be in the same fee rate.
Yeah, because they're at 11 mills, I believe, over in Brighton.
Yeah, but their fire impact fee for each dwelling is around 681, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what seems fair to me would be the 681 plus the difference in that mill levy, so that they were getting the same amount as the Brighton Fire Department.
I don't think the mill levy's gonna pass.
Good.
Again,
They
they're
probably
just going,
won't, but-
we need money. They're not justifying it, they're not saying anything. And I don't think it has a snowball's chance in hell of passing.
No, but I
And
think it was-
also Brighton's impact fee was passed over the objection of the city manager. He thought it was too high.
You know, I've heard people bring up that we should talk to the developers about that and ask them. The developers are not the ones that are paying that. You know, it's the builder that's paying it, and it's not the builder that's paying it, it's the homeowner. You know, they can pass it along, so what input does the developer really have?
Well, and let's not get too deep into
Okay,
this,
but
because
anyway.
this is a discussion
that's
that we
what I
need to
think
have.
would be fair.
This is something we need to have on the agenda to have, so there's people here and they can come and hear the, I don't think us just discussing it right now is
So that was only my
prudent.
discussion, was just
Yeah.
equal to what
That's-
Brighton charges.
But that's something we definitely need to discuss. And it's something that we need to put on the agenda so that everyone has the ability to, yeah.
I think trying to throw a mathematical formula into trying to tracking what Brighton's mill levy is and trying to apply that here and what the difference is on every property would just be a lot of, I'm not sure it could.
Well, I mean, and you got a population difference of 40,000 to 7,000. Go ahead.
You gotta be really, really careful with impact fees. We've talked about that over the
Yeah.
years. And the problem with impact fees are they can only be charged for the purpose of capital facility investment, not for ongoing operations and maintenance. Mill levies are for operation and maintenance. If you were to pull the mill levy and try to calculate what the impact fee would be, I think you risk a challenge that you're probably going to lose, frankly. The impact fee should be based on a study, which they've done. It came to a certain number. So you can meet that number, you can be anything below that number, but it's just a one-time fee, not meant for any ongoing matter for them. They're supposed to be banking it and using it for capital improvements. I think the issue that we've had here was that, at least the discussions as I've understood it, was that generally we're not opposed to impact fee, or you're not opposed to impact fees, but you want to know that those monies that are being placed into that impact fee fund in Lochbuie are for capital facilities to benefit the community of Lochbuie.
Yep.
I think that's where we're not hearing that yet from the fire
Still
department.
have a CIP plan already.
No.
I completely agree with that.
Yep.
So is it going to be next meeting then, that we're going to talk about this? Or?
I think that'd be something we definitely need to put on the agenda for the next meeting. It's a discussion we definitely need to have. Because as Maureen stated, I'm not opposed to it, but again, I just want to make sure that when that, no different than the money we had set aside for the, for the schools, use it here. If we're going to have the builders put the money in there, I want it used here. But
And since this is going to be on there, can we encourage Chief to come and chat? Because I would like to hear more about their mill levy request too, if we could.
Chief Abelson?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So, Linda, did you have any updates on election or anything, or any operations?
Sorry. I mean, we did our a lot drawing today for the order of the ballot. I sent in the stuff to the county for them to, I mean, Friday's the deadline to send it in, but since we kind of had it all ready, so in case something was wrong, I had a little time to fix it. Plus, based on them numbering our ballot questions as first come, first served, so I went ahead and sent it in today. We have the ballot box. If y'all haven't noticed, it's outside. They still need to come and put the magnets on it that say Weld County. So they should be doing that here shortly. And then I did confirm that it is a statutory requirement for if someone drops an Adams County ballot in there, that ballot gets to Adams County. It's required for them to do that. So it doesn't matter which county gets in there, they'll get it to them. And I think that's it.
okay, thank you.
Do you happen to know when the mail-out ballots, approximate?
I'm not 100% sure, but usually it's around like October 15th, the 16th, something right then. They'll put, once they get everything kind of tied together, they'll put that calendar out for us and I can share that information. But it's usually around that date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, Steve? Did you have anything, Maureen?
No, only that I'm equally surprised by the news that Diane Miller gave to, as all the rest of you, because I've been talking with counsel for the oil and gas companies, and they must have moved very, very quickly. I mean, I do find it interesting, and we'll have to look at this potential settlement agreement, because we're a party to this litigation, and so we've not been contacted. It sounds like there's no reason for us to object, but I don't know, not seen it. I mean, this was kind of dropped on me tonight too, so I am enthusiastic about it, but I am going to be double checking.
Yeah, somewhat reserved, yeah.
It's-
Where's the string attached to it?
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll make sure there's not a string.
So, okay.
It's great.
All right, mayor and trustee comments. Trustee Ott?
The only thing I have is that maybe I missed it, but how are they coming on moving the utilities on too?
They're all are at some level of moving. Comcast, I think, has an on-site meeting tomorrow with JVA's crew to figure out where their boxes need to go. Wyco, who is the fiber optic crew for the school, still need to come back and move stuff. United Power will maybe start with the first phase of their removal on Friday. We don't know that for sure, but that's kind of their tentative schedule. So as soon as we get the check to United Power, they will do a formal, get the formal order through to start the work. They'll get the work order through. So that's moving. That will occur this fall. Comcast, or CenturyLink is also in the process of moving their work. And I think Excel is still on track from what we knew from previously.
So at least we're moving forward
Mhm.
finally. And the only thing is I have that I will not be here for the next meeting.
And I would point out that on the, our share of the relocation for United Power facilities, the total cost of that project is around $800,000. We think we can reduce our cost a little bit because they've done an experiment in Broomfield on, I think of the road. It's a new light fixture, but it's a fiberglass pole. They think the cost savings is about 25%, so we can have that on 20 lights. And also our contractor, we think, will be able to do the open cut in the road and perhaps lay conduit for United Power if we can schedule that, which will save some cost for us as well as opposed to a bore. So we're going to try and get that coordinated. The major cost for the town's share of this is, the streetlight system and, the wiring on both sides of the street for the streetlights.
Okay, well, I just want, last time we talked, there was still a kink in the movement of the utilities. So
Yep,
I just
that's-
want to make sure we finally got them on track.
Yep,
And
it's-
thank you for doing that.
It's moving forward, yep.
That's all I have.
All right, Trustee Doherty?
I have a couple of things.
No.
I had some comments from some citizens about some weeds and just primarily kind of a lot of sticker plants in the Berkshire Park. So I know it's maintained by the HOA, but I had a couple of citizens that kind of noted that they felt that the park was a little unusable just because of how rampant especially the sticker weeds were. So I think we should reach out to the HOA that's helping maintain our property and see if they can make sure they're keeping on top of that. I had a thought today. I had lots of thoughts today, but this one's relevant to this. About our surface parking that we approved and kind of the percentage.
The which one?
For surface parking, so being able, or I guess the amount of concrete or improved parking in front lots of properties, I guess. The one thing that I don't know if we.
On single-family homes?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, sorry,
Okay.
should have been more specific. One thing that I don't know if I don't think we considered, but I'm not sure it has an impact, is when you do like the house design and all that, there's certain designs that go into runoff. And our storm drains, or the storm drains that were built into those residential neighborhoods, and how much runoff they would take. And let's just say that 90% of Berkshire decided to add another driveway. What impact does that really have on our gutter systems and our stormwater systems in those neighborhoods? Because we talked about all of these things, and we like the idea of paving it in concrete versus rock, but rock's permeable, whereas concrete's not so much. And what impact, so again, if we do that and then there's let's say even a halfway decent rainstorm, are we gonna just completely flood our streets all of a sudden because we approved this? And so I think maybe we need to take a look at that and see what impacts that really has with drainage in those neighborhoods, because they were likely not designed for that many additional concrete surface parking on houses.
Well, probably one thing that we should do is to require at least a setback from the lot line for any hard surface like flat work, concrete flat work. So right now, it's, in theory, you could pave up to your property line. We probably should require at least like a 5-foot setback for any hard surface paving. But there is a standard to limit your front yard impervious area. But that's.
So, because I thought we approved that they could pave like 35% in this last round that we went through.
I think that's correct, 35% of your front yard.
So but by doing that, I don't think we considered any impacts on our stormwater system.
Well, I'm not sure that the covenants in your neighborhood honestly would allow for that either.
It was just a thought that I had, we didn't consider it, and if a lot of people were to do it, I definitely understand what you're saying with covenants, but if, let's say it's not in Berkshire, let's say it's in the modular area, they go and do that, what impact does that have on, you know, the storm drain system in that area? If all that additional water is going down the street, what impact does that really have? And then, County Road 2, so I think we knew this already and I just didn't remember it, for Lac Bowie Station and the fire district that they have. So that they're in Brighton's fire district. I think we should voice a little bit more strongly about trying to get some additional support from Brighton on County Road 2 from a fire district perspective, and the fact that if that road's not finished well and it's kind of curvy because they don't get their portion of the road done, that, you know, it might be way more difficult for a fire truck to get to their servicing area than not. I mean, if it has to go from 2 to 3 to 2 and whatever it goes through, and the fire trucks have to do the same thing if they're trying to get to a fire. And anytime you see a road narrows down from a 2 to a 1, the traffic funnels and the traffic slows down in that section. And if you have a fire truck trying to get to that new neighborhood, what impact does that really have on the people that Brighton, are responsible to provide that for? And I know it's not Brighton that has that, it's Brighton's fire district, but I think that impacts because of how that fire district line is. And I think that's their responsibility.
Well, maybe that fire chief would be willing to try and get the attention of the city manager.
Fair enough. So from the road sweeping that we had in the board packet, it makes it sound, and I just wanted to confirm that they're planning on basically sweeping one side and then a day after or 2 days after sweeping the other side. So it's not that they're not sweeping both sides of the street the same day. Okay. I appreciate you guys kind of looking at that and figuring out a way to still allow for parking on the streets. I think that, especially in Berkshire, will be very well received. Still probably is not going to be loved, but kind of is what it is. I think it's a really good middle ground. I did also want to comment on the internet in the town. So I'd like to have some more discussions. I know there are some municipalities that have adopted and are starting to provide internet. First off, I think it's absolutely insane that they reverse net neutrality. And I think it does a lot of disservice for a lot of citizens, a lot of people, and most of the people that it's a disservice to are those that are less likely to have internet or have high-speed internet and things like that. I completely disagree with that. But I think it's still something that the town should look into. I don't think that internet should be considered a luxury at all. I think every kid in this entire town should have access to affordable internet and fast enough internet that they can do their homework from home. I mean, we're talking about helping by offering computers here and things like that. We're looking at all these different ideas, but that's a huge one. Because he's right, there's just a handful of providers, and in my opinion, there's only a couple of them that are really all that viable. And I think it's also insane that we allow for utility monopolies. And I think we should do something about it, because I absolutely do not think that this is just a convenient thing for people to have. I think it's a necessity for people to have. It's just like power today. It's just like having a sewer system today. Internet is the exact same as all of those other services that we provide. And I think we do, and it's not the town's fault right now, but I think it's a complete disservice to our citizens that we allow the monopoly to continue, and we allow for net neutrality to go through, and all of those things that really hamper a growing community. And I think it's something we should look into. I like the fact that a lot of communities are doing it. I'd be willing to contact Google and say, hey, just like you guys did in Topeka, we might be willing to change our name to Google for a year. If you want to come in here and you want to give our town good internet. Because, I mean, even my phone, I mean, I know Verizon's coming in with their tower soon, but it's been poor for a long time. And, you know, I'm fortunate in my situation, but not everybody is on what their access is to internet at home and things like that. And I think the town should look into what they can do and what we can do to help our citizens from that standpoint. And then the last thing that I have is just kind of the next step with Safe Built. So the motion was kind of between now and January-ish that Larry and I would continue to meet with them. And I guess I would like to kind of prompt and prod that to see what we can, when and what we can get set up next to have a meeting with them to kind of continue these discussions, because I definitely don't want this to, I don't think it was the intent of the board that this sits until January. I think the intent of the board was that this is progressing just a little bit more behind closed doors between two trustees, and then similar to other negotiations that we have, they come back with a recommendation to the board somewhere around in January. So I'd like to make sure that we're on top of that and we do something to progress this over the next, before the end of this month, and then continuing on from there. That's all that I have.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
I would just add, I was grateful for the information you sent us on SB 152 Marine, and I think I would be interested in at least having more of a discussion of it on at an upcoming meeting. I have reservations about town-provided internet service for a bunch of reasons, but I at least want to learn some more about it before we press forward or decide against it. Other issues I had some citizen questions and concerns raised about speeders on Willow again. A lot of people would really like to see that speed tracker thing come back on Willow, especially now that school has started again. And then I'm starting to see a lot of questions about what Big Trash Day is going to look like next year. So if we have any details on
About what now?
Big Trash Day, or whatever we call it.
Cleanup Day.
Cleanup
Oh,
Day.
cleanup day.
Yeah, a lot of people, some of the ideas I've seen are maybe doing it on 2 separate days, door to door, all the things we've discussed. People want an idea of what it's going to look like next year. Have we had any luck scheduling a candidate for him?
Actually, I'm still waiting on a return call from them. I've got calls and emails out, so haven't heard anything back yet. I'm hoping.
I think especially since there's contested mayoral election and trustee elections, it would be great.
No, definitely.
Awesome on Lake Henry. I know in the past we've done resolutions in support of MLOs by the school district and the fire district, so that's part of the reason I want to hear from Chief Gabrielson to see if we should consider a resolution in support of this one, depending on what it sounds like the board's reaction is. And then similar question on the statewide ballot measures, if we wanted to take any resolutions with positions on them, especially since the Municipal League has come out strongly against several of them, including the, I can't remember which number it is, but the takings one. Do you remember which? I can't remember what number it is, but I think.
Well, the setback ones and the taking ones.
97.
97 is the setback, I think. Anyway, what I really was tossing out there is maybe we should consider a resolution against especially the takings one, since I think, based on what I've seen from CML, we would probably have unanimous support to oppose that on this board. And then maybe we could talk about some of the others, though I think there might be some division on those. So that's all I had.
Okay. Trustee Morris?
I appreciated what Mr. Ricker brought forward about the internet thing, and I also would like to explore that a little bit further. And in regards to audience business, and I don't know if this is feasible or practical or something that we could do, but I think it might help to look at setting a time limit for people to take the podium or be at the microphone, so that it's not an open mic session and that they can go on forever. Not that Mr. Ricker did, but just, you know, in general, to help with the flow of the meeting and if there are several people that want to have a turn to speak, that you know, maybe we limit that, or just, you know, whether that's 3 minutes or 10 minutes or something. Out of respect for everyone else. And if they use up their time limit, then they could ask for an extension, and then depending on the meeting and the audience, to either grant that or be done. If you can't say what you have to say in 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, then we're not sure about
You're
that.
asking the audience to do it and the board can't do it.
Well.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, let me touch on that too. Sometimes I think it's good for us to maybe have a reminder about like what our role is as the board, as the governing body or division people, and maybe try to keep ourselves from going too deeply down different rabbit holes and getting into the weeds on some stuff. I have some things about fire impact fees, but I'll save it for another time. And with that, I don't know how much time I've used, but I'm done. Being mindful of the comment.
Very succinct. Trustee Strzok.
Are you done?
I have done.
Oh, you don't get to ask anybody that, Mr. Strzok. Go ahead.
You know, I think we should start thinking in the near future for next year about maybe approaching DOLA and consider maybe doing a public works complex out there at Henry Lake. We own the land. We're a success story. DOLA's primed, you know, for loaning us more money. The other thing is the logistics for public works to work behind this building is pretty tough. You got the police department going in and out. You got the water treatment coming in and out with chemicals too, so it may be something to think about in the future. Kind of a funny thing about pouring cement in our front yards is that the additional water could be calculated, and the runoff would actually lower our consumptive rates, so we wouldn't have to have as much water, you see. The other thing is we should try to think about budgeting another 1 or 2 more speed signs that light up, you know. So I like the ones that flash the red, even, you know, and maybe some blue lights, but they seem to do a pretty good job, you know, for some of the honest people. Thank you.
Or if you just want to make sure your speedometer is working properly.
We just hammer those things and see how high they go and how fast.
Right. Trustee Early?
Interesting thing I got from United Power. Did you all get one of these? Mm-hmm. It said that construction contractors were digging into underground power lines. So are they not calling 811 like we do and having everything marked to cause outages? The last one was like almost 2 hours the other day. So I don't know, I thought that was interesting that they sent that to us.
But I would add the other part says it's also our explosive growth has causes strain on their system, so.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you. And with that, I have nothing.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. And opposed? And we are adjourned at 8:29.
I get so many things. Public service, they say, yes, we're going to start charging you.
Sorry, Mike. I had to take the shot. You